Today, we're looking at Diamine Ancient Copper. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Diamine Ancient Copper is a brown ink. Before we get to the writing sample, let's take a look at some of the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography. Now, I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down, I put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds, let it creep up. And what we see here is a nice darker line on the bottom, and then we've got this kind of pink magenta color. It works its way up into a dark red, some brown at the very top, and some yellow off on the side. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into the water. And it looks exactly the same, it just doesn't creep up as high. This is telling us we have no water resistance, and it doesn't affect what will happen if it gets wet after it's dried or while it's still wet. I don't know. Resistance tests are done to see how it can be expected to hold up on the page and how hard it might be to clean out of a pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter. Don't highlight this. Don't use this in notes you need to highlight because it doesn't like it. Water completely reactivates it and pulls almost all of it off the page. Same with pen flush, same with bleach. There is zero resistance to this ink. Now this is a bell curve or a normal distribution for the viscosities or flow of the 365 inks I've tested. And for those 365 inks, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5. Normal, or one standard deviation away from the average, is the range from 2.1 to 2.9. Diamine Ancient Copper has a viscosity of 1.77, which makes it a very flowing ink. That's why it performs well with dry pens. That's why when put down very wet, you get to see some of the darker, richer tones of this ink. It is a very wet ink. This is a bell curve for the average dry time. For the 365 inks I've tested, I have an average dry time of 17 seconds. Normal for dry time is anywhere in the realm from 13 to 21 seconds. Diamine Ancient Copper has an average dry time of 10 seconds, which makes it a faster drying ink. We see that is well down in the orange. It's getting close to that red range. It's getting closer to that water line. Good candidate for your dry pens. Might be a reason that I do like some dry pens. To find the average dry time, I average the extra fine and the medium nib on my writing samples done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Let's look at the writing sample. I got this ink in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 Goulet stub. I use a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet medium nib, and a Goulet X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Starting out with Clairefontaine. No bleed. Ghosting only where I put it down very heavy on a scrubby. Other than that, there's none. I almost really don't count that because I don't tend to beat up onto paper that way. But it does show up as starting to come really through where I put it on super heavy. So if you're an animal putting ink down, it might come through. Looking at the 1.1 stub at the top, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, but a ton of shading. This ink lives up to its reputation. This is something that people should get. Look at what goes on with the extra fine. Tons of shading all the way through. Behaves well. There's no feather, no spread. There's no halo, no sheen, but the color variation is amazing. I don't know that there's an ink in the world that's anywhere near this. Only 8 seconds to dry, so it's not obnoxious there either. On a medium nib, despite my writing problems here, still no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, tons of shading, and 10 seconds to dry. Not a whole lot longer than what I got with my extra fine. Both the fine and the medium on the scrubby show how much color variation this can have. And when it comes to me smearing to see if I could recover it, I would be able to recover it. So that's good. That's what I'm after. One of the qualities I like. Moving on to Tomoe River.
Tomoe River, we have a couple bleed spots. Put it down extra heavy, be an animal. That's what I was doing. It's going to come through, especially being aggressive. It looks like I might have dragged the pen hard there. We're going to see that a lot through all of my writing samples all the time. I sometimes just get a little too aggressive. We, of course, have ghosting. It's Tomoe River. It's too thin to not ghost. Looking at the top, the 1.1 stub, we actually get some of the color variation to hold on with the Tomoe River paper. It's not common. Going on to the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Great color. Great color. We're still getting color variation with the extra fine on Tomoe River. It holds on to its color variation in a paper that makes it wait longer and only 9 seconds to dry. Moving to the medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Great color variation. Horrible writing. Somebody's got bad penmanship. 16 seconds to dry. Looking at the scrubby, we still see our color variation. And when it comes to the smear, you might be able to get it. I can see the lines. Not perfectly, but I could see them. I might be able to actually recover this if I had a problem. On to Rhodia. Looking at the Rhodia, we have no bleed. We have no ghosting. So that's fantastic. In the 1.1 stub, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading. We're getting the shading. On the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Shading. Tons of shade. This ink gives us everything that anybody has ever said about it. It's true. It deserves everything good that anybody's ever said. 6 seconds to dry. On the medium nib, all the same stuff. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Great colors. Great color variation. 11 seconds to dry. The scrubbies show how much color variation you get in both the extra fine and the medium. And on the smear, I could definitely recover that. So moving on to North Books. North Books was a brand I went and I found online. They were interesting. When we look at it, we have no bleed. We have show through only in the scrubby. So it's holding up pretty good here. Other samples it doesn't do as well, but here it did really well. But this is nice. 90 GSM paper, so it's nice and heavy. So we're hoping for something like that. Looking at the 1.1 stub, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Not nearly the amount of color variation we've gotten on other papers, but this is a toned paper. This is not as white. Very close in color to the Tomoe River. And what happens to the color of the writing? So we get some of the same things, some of the same darker actions. So some of what we're seeing as a color change and some of the loss of the shading here might be from the tone of this paper. Moving to the extra fine. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Some color variation. Not as much as we saw with the white papers. So this is definitely an ink that stands out and jumps with the lighter the paper. Papers that are not toned definitely give this ink all of its best qualities. 1 second to dry on this paper. It really sucked right in there. And that's where our shading went. It doesn't have the time to shade when it goes straight in, which is the amazing part that it didn't bleed. It didn't bleed through and it only took 1 second to dry. The medium, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. Still 1 second to dry. It's a sponge. We use this to clean up messes in the kitchen. It's a sponge, but it performs well. Didn't come through, so you can't deny it that. But we do get to see some of the color variation in the scrubbies. On the smear, you could, I don't know that you could smear this. I had to work real hard to get that. So smearing's not a problem. This is a good paper right here for students. Although I don't remember what it cost, I do remember it was a little pricier. And you can't get it in big notebooks. I think A5 is the biggest I found it. But this was not horrible paper, and it's half the time. Half the time. This was not horrible in how it acted. So that wasn't too bad. Now we're on to Leuchtturm. Leuchtturm, the 1917. We have no bleed. We We have no ghosting. Looking at the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We're getting our color variation. We're getting more color variation than we got on the Northbrooks, and the papers are not that different in their color, but the little differences can do it. Now we move on to the extra fine. We have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Definitely getting a lot more shade. More shades occurring with the extra fine than we got with the 1.1. 4 seconds to dry, and we go to the medium and we get almost no shading. So while it still has no feather, spread, halo, or sheen, we lose the shading here. And 9 seconds to dry. But it is a nice dark color in just how it's showing up. And looking at the scrubbies, we see the shading shows up with the fine and is lost with the medium. When it comes to the smear, the extra fine I would probably be able to read. The medium, I don't know. I don't think I would be able to read that.
Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine Ancient Copper, I would prefer to find an ink that really complements it on the page. With Diamine Ancient Copper being a very brownish red ink, I thought a red-orange ink that was much lighter could truly bring out a little bit more and stand on its own. So I've chosen Elixir Flame of the Forest because it is an orange-red ink, very orangey. And before I give my opinion on this ink, I'm asking, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I'd invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do my writing samples. I then put this ink into a different pen and use it for a day. I then put it into a different pen to take my notes for the video. And my pen to take these notes was the Piere Cardin President with a medium nib. So what do I think about Diamine's Ancient Copper? It lives up to its reputation in every way. It belongs in every inky arsenal for when you do need that authoritative brown ink. And it's not just a brown, it's a something special color. Add it to the arsenal. The big question, would I buy a bottle of this ink? Who wouldn't? Yes. Thanks for watching.